They started running towards their platform, and by the time they arrived, they literally saw the train that was about to depart, but the doors of the train were still open. So they rushed towards the doors, and the lady inside, and they told us this story, literally did like this. And of course, they stopped, they froze, and in front of their faces, the doors just closed and the train departed. Fabulous people, welcome to the podcast for all the babes who create their own life trends. My name is Anastasia, and this podcast is all about inspiring you to relentlessly pursue your biggest dreams and live your most authentic, abundant life. So, picture this: you are on your dream honeymoon in Italy, wandering cobblestone streets, discovering hidden gems, having long lunches and dinners in local trattorias, and your entire trip is planned to a perfection. And then, bam, you miss your train to the next destination. What do you do? In this new episode of That Time in Italy series, I'm going to share with you a real travel story from our clients whose second dream honeymoon almost turned into a logistical nightmare when a simple train platform mix-up left them stranded. And of course, we are going to discuss today what went wrong, how we saved the day, and important things that you absolutely need to know when it comes to traveling Italy by train before you arrive to Italy. And of course, at the end of this episode, I'm going to share with you very important, crucial tips and don'ts of traveling Italy by train. I'm going to cover all the common mistakes I see travelers make all the time, the type of tickets you need to buy, and what to do if your train gets delayed or canceled. Because, of course, it happens, and it happens more often than we want or than we think. All right, fabulous people, let's dive in. So, last year, we organized a 3-week bespoke journey, the only kind my travel agency does, for clients for their second honeymoon that they decided to spend in Italy. And because they had 3 weeks, of course, they had time to visit some of the most picturesque parts of Italy, everything from Lake Como and Cinque Terre to Venice, Rome, Florence, etc. It was absolutely stunning trip, the kind of trip that I want to do, even though I live in Italy. And of course, everything was planned to the perfection. Now, as you guys know, that the best way to travel in Italy is, of course, by trains. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that to go from one destination to another, often you need to switch trains, especially if you're going to remote locations, like for example, Lake Como or Cinque Terre. Not only you will have to switch trains, but a lot of times you will have to take a mix of high-speed trains and regional trains. Again, especially if you're going to the remote parts of Italy. And that is what our clients needed to do. They needed to travel from Venice to Lake Como. And so their journey was as following. From Venice, they needed to get to Milano Garibaldi train station. And then from Milano Garibaldi, they needed to travel to Lecco. And then from Lecco, a private driver was supposed to pick them up and take them to their place in Lake Como in Bellagio, which is about a 40-minute drive. So when they arrived from Venice to Milano Garibaldi train station, they had about 15 to 20 minutes switch between the platforms, which is plenty of time when you travel Italy by train. It is very different when you travel, of course, by plane because you need to be hours in advance at the airport. But with trains, 15 to 20 minutes is usually plenty of time for you to get out of the train or get to the train station and that find the platform from which you are departing. Now, what happened is, unfortunately, accidentally, they misread the platform. So they went to the wrong platform. And of course, when they realized it, unfortunately, it was already too late. So as soon as they missed their train, of course, they contacted the concierge number of my travel agency and we rebooked them right away to the next train. Now, what happened is that the platform number of their train was announced only 7 minutes prior to the departure, which is not that uncommon in Italy. And unfortunately, because they had lots of luggage and they were not familiar with the layout of the train station, they started running towards their platform. And by the time they arrived, they literally saw the train that was about to depart, but the doors of the train were still open. So they rushed towards the doors, and the lady inside, and they told us this story, literally did like this. And of course, they stopped, they froze, and in front of their faces, the doors just closed and the train departed. Of course, they called us once again, and by that time, they were just exhausted and they did not want to try again. They just wanted to leave that train station. So right away, we organized a private driver for them from that train station directly to their place in Lake Como. And that's where it ended for them. A lot of people always ask me, Anastasia, what is the main difference between your travel agency and other travel agencies on the market? And I always respond, we are truly one of a kind. The 24/7 concierge service, where clients literally have direct access to me and my team throughout their entire journey. A lot of times, I am the one to answer their calls or their text messages because they can contact us directly through WhatsApp. And it gives them such a peace of mind knowing that no matter what happens while they travel, they have someone who is there for them 24/7. They don't have to call and then wait online until a representative answers. They don't have to worry that because they're in Italy and their travel agent is in the US and there is a time difference, that they're not going to get an immediate response. We respond immediately, right away. And that is something that all our clients can attest to and really, really appreciate. Because things like this that I shared with you, they happen, be it with accommodations like I shared with you in the previous episode, or with trains, and there are so many other things that happen when you travel, no matter where you go, be it Italy, France, Spain, Greece. It just happens with international travel. Another thing that I am so proud of is that we do not sell anything prepackaged. We don't sell prepackaged trips, prepackaged cruises that lack any kind of personalization or authenticity. Every single trip we create is completely from scratch. It is fully bespoke based on the preferences and needs of our clients. We limit the number of clients we work with so we can truly focus on providing exceptional level of service and attention to detail from the moment we begin crafting your trip to the day you depart from Italy. Now, of course, I prepared so many important travel tips when it comes to traveling Italy by train that I'm about to share with you because it is so important for me to share with you guys this information. So, if you travel Italy by train and you plan your trips by yourself, you're fully prepared. These are some of the top tips when it comes to traveling Italy by train, and I know that you will find them extremely useful. And this is something that no one, guys, talks about. So, this is something that, of course, we learned from organizing thousands of trips in Italy. It is something that we learned because I've taken hundreds of trips throughout the entire Italy because, of course, I've been here for over 10 years. So, this is something that we truly learned from thousands and thousands of trips. So let me begin because, of course, I have them all written down here. Let me begin with tip number one. And I briefly talked about this at the beginning of this podcast episode when I mentioned that I don't recommend showing up to the train station 1 hour or 2 hours in advance. 30 minutes, let's say 30 to 40 minutes at most is plenty, guys. So if you show up to the train station 30 minutes in advance, you will be able to right away understand the layout of the train station. And the most important, the first thing that you will need to do is to find the screens where you will be able to see your train and, of course, the platform number. That is the most important. Once you find the screen and you find your train, then the next thing I recommend for you to do is right away get yourself familiar with the layout of the train station. Okay, so the screens are here, the platforms are here, these are the numbers. So, for example, if your train arrives to the platform number 7 and you get yourself familiar with the layout of the train station, you know, okay, platform number 15 is to the right, platform number 1 is to the left, so this is where I need to go for platform number 7. Just get yourself well familiar with the train station, with the layout, so when your platform gets announced, you know more or less where to go. The next tip that I have for you is to make sure always buy changeable tickets. Always. It's extremely important. There is one exception that I will mention later, but the reason why it is important is because in case you need to change your ticket, even last minute, and also we will talk about it in a second, you will be able to do so. Now, one exception here is that if your train already departed, it is too late to change your ticket. In this situation, your ticket, unfortunately, is done. But in all other cases, it is very important for you guys to have those changeable tickets. Now, the next tip is the continuation of the previous point. If, for example, you arrive at the train station, maybe you have a train connection and you see that you only have now 6 minutes, for example, to change your platform because your previous train was delayed, then I recommend for you to go right away to the representative at the train station and have them change your ticket. That's why the changeable tickets are so important, to change your ticket to the next train. So they can push it to the next train. This way you are not stressed that you are going to miss your train. If there is a way to do it, if there is a possibility to do it, if you feel like you literally have just a few minutes and you're almost certain that you are not going to catch that next train, do not wait, just go right away to the representative and they will definitely be able to help you. There is a representative at every single train station, even the smallest train stations in the countryside, they all have representatives that will be able to help you and that do speak at least a basic level of English, because I know that always comes up. People always ask me, Anastasia, do they speak English? At least a little bit. I don't want to end up somewhere in Italy where no one speaks any English. At the train stations, even the most rural train stations, they will always speak the most basic English, of course, to help all the international travelers. Now, the next tip is something that I've never heard anyone talk about. And this is honestly something that comes from years and years of experience of booking tickets for our clients and also monitoring their journeys. Because when our clients take trains, of course, we literally monitoring their trains live. So if there are any delays or cancellations or anything that can happen when you take trains in Italy, we know right away. So what happens a lot of times when you arrive to the train station is that your train will already be announced, even sometimes 30 minutes in advance. Here is the most important part. Even though it is already announced, it is very important for you guys to keep an eye on the screen, because what happens from time to time is that they change the platform the last minute. Just because your platform is announced 30 minutes in advance, it doesn't mean that it is 100% your platform. Check 10 minutes prior to the train arrival, and if it's still the same platform, then you're good to go, because sometimes they do change them last minute. Now, another insider tip that I have for you is that first trains in the morning will be announced way in advance, because again, of course, they're first trains, so they do know exactly which platform those trains will arrive on. Now, here is something for you to keep in mind. A lot of times, if there is a strike on the train station, those usually are the first trains to get canceled. And the reason for it is because they don't know on that day, if there is a strike, how many people will actually show up to work. So even though it is great to take the first train in the morning, at the same time, in case of a strike, you might be out of luck getting on your train. Now, I know that strikes, of course, is always a very big concern for a lot of people, rightfully so. One thing that I want to mention about train strikes in Italy is that even though there will be a strike, God forbid, but it can happen when you will be traveling, they will have most of the time all the essential trains running. So it doesn't mean that just because there is a strike, the entire train system in Italy will be completely shut down. So what you need to do is to go to the official website of Trenitalia or Italo, and then you need to go to manage my ticket, enter your reference number, and to see if your train is going to be canceled. Now, it can happen. At this point, do not panic, because also on those websites, you will find the list of the trains that will still be running. So what you need to do is to be very proactive and rebook yourself online to one of those trains that will still be running that day, hopefully for your desired route. So what I always recommend, guys, and this is something that you need to be proactive with, or your travel agency, of course, needs to be proactive with, is to monitor Trenitalia website, Italo website, and in case there are any strikes, because in Italy they are legally obligated to announce those strikes in advance. It is not legal in Italy to just strike. They need to announce them in advance. They must announce them in advance. So you need to just be proactive and to monitor those websites, depending if you're traveling with Italo or Trenitalia. And then, of course, if it happens, make sure to rebook yourself on another train. And of course, if you're working with a travel agency, they should be handling all of this for you. They should be monitoring your trip, monitoring your trains, rebooking you, and doing all those things in the background behind the scenes so you can have the most seamless and stress-free vacation. Now, in addition to all these important tips, I also want to do a subcategory and to share with you the absolute don'ts of traveling Italy by train. Something that I see people do or ask me questions in the comments of my YouTube channel. So this is something that I really want to emphasize. I sat down again when I was preparing for this episode and collected and thought of all the things, all the don'ts that I really want to share with you guys. So when you travel in Italy, when you come here, you are fully prepared. So number one thing, never take a train on the same day you have to be somewhere, be it catching a plane or catching a cruise. Way too often I see this question in my comment section, and a lot of times people say, Anastasia, I have a cruise that is departing at 3 p.m. If my train arrives at 1:20 p.m., will I have enough time to get to my cruise? And I always say, guys, this is trains. Anything can happen. You can have a huge delay, you can have a strike, you can miss your train. There are so many things that can happen, and then you will end up ruining your entire vacation just because of this one little small thing. So I always say, and I always recommend, if you need to be somewhere, be it catching a plane or catching a cruise, definitely take the train one day in advance. Arrive one day prior. You can even arrive in the evening. If you have a cruise ship that is departing early in the morning, it's okay to arrive in the evening. But please don't arrive the same day when you know you have to be somewhere. And same goes for the car rental agencies. Now, of course, I don't advice for you to take a train one day in advance just so you can go to the car rental agency and make it in time. But even with car rental agencies, just make sure that you guys giving yourself plenty of time. If you know that the car rental agency closes at 9 p.m., arrive earlier, arrive at 4 p.m., arrive at 3 p.m. Just give it enough time, give it enough buffer, guys. Don't put yourself into those situations where you literally will be sitting and worrying the entire day, the entire time if you're going to make it on time. Because the joy of traveling is to be stress-free, to be relaxed, to enjoy, because we have enough all of this going on in our everyday life. The whole point of vacation is to relax. But when you constantly have to worry about, am I going to make it somewhere on time? Will they still be open? Will my cruise ship depart? Because trust me, I've heard so many of those horror stories where travelers literally would be left on a shore looking at their cruise ship just departing, just waving at them and saying goodbye. I've heard it all, guys. Throughout the years, I've heard it all. And that is why I always say, if you can, try to avoid putting yourself into those situations. The next tip that I have for you is don't wait until you arrive at the train station to buy your tickets, especially to the most popular destinations like from Rome to Florence. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of times I get asked a question, Anastasia, I'm arriving to Rome Fiumicino Airport around 9 a.m. because most international flights, they arrive in the morning. Is it okay if I don't buy my train ticket until I get to the train station? And the reason why I get asked this question a lot is because some people, when they arrive to Rome Fiumicino Airport, instead of just staying in Rome, they want to travel right away to, let's say, Florence. So they go from Rome Fiumicino Airport to the Rome train station. A lot of times we organize, of course, private transportation if they're traveling with my travel agency, and then they travel right away to Florence. So they don't want to start their journey in Rome. They want to go to Florence, experience all the cities they want to visit, and then, for example, leave Rome for the last part of their trip because they are going to be departing from Rome. So that is a smart way to do it. Of course, there are so many ways organizing your trip, but that is one way to do it. And so they don't know how long, of course, it's going to take for them to go through customs, to get their luggage. So they don't want to take that chance of missing their train. So I get asked that question quite often. Anastasia, can I wait until I arrive to the train station to purchase the tickets? And I always say, please do not do this. What I recommend, once again, remember that whole conversation about the changeable tickets. I always recommend to get yourself changeable tickets. So just in case you are late, you are running late, and you are not making it to your train, you can always go and change your ticket to the later time. But of course, if you give yourself plenty of time, most likely you are not going to miss that train. But that changeable ticket is going to give you that peace of mind that even if you do, you will still be able to exchange it for the next train. Now, the reason why I do not recommend for you guys to wait until you arrive to the train station is because, number one, a lot of times, like I said, the train tickets for most popular destinations will be sold out, especially during the high season, which is for Italy, it's almost year round. Another reason why I don't recommend for you guys to wait until the last minute is because if you're traveling as a large family, and doesn't have to be large, 4 or 5 people, during the high season, there is a huge chance that you will not have all the seats together. You will not be able to sit together. So 2 of you will sit there, another will sit maybe even in another wagon. So in order for you guys to make sure that you are traveling as a family unit, you are sitting together, you need to buy those tickets far in advance. Now, number 3, if you miss your train, do not panic. Do not panic, guys. It's not the end of the world. You won't be left at the train station forever. There is always a way. What I recommend for you to do, if you miss your train and you are not working with a travel agency, then go right away to the representative at the train station. Like I mentioned, every single train station has representatives. So go to them and they will definitely help you to rebook your tickets to the next train. Now, one thing here to keep in mind, and this is something that is very important if you're planning a trip to Italy by yourself, if you booked the last train of the day and you miss it, then unfortunately, the solutions are very limited. You will either have to organize private transportation for yourself, or you will have to spend the night at that city where you missed your train. So plan accordingly. And when I say plan accordingly, I mean, you have to take all these things into consideration when you start planning your trip, when you start buying your tickets. So all this kind of small nuances, like I mentioned previously about booking the first train of the day in case of a strike, or booking the last train of the day in case you miss the train. All these things you definitely need to keep in mind. Finally, the last tip that I have for you, the last don't, is do not book non-refundable tickets. Unless there is exception here too, guys, you are booking 1 day in advance and you are certain that there won't be any train strikes that day. And one of the advantages, of course, of booking your trains at the last minute, just please don't do it often, guys, again, because you are running a big chance of those train tickets to be completely sold out. But if you are, for whatever reason, you are buying your train tickets 1 day prior to your trip, then a lot of times you will have a special promotion or a special deal that Trenitalia or Italo is offering. So in that case, there is going to be no strike, you're all clear, you're all good to go. In that case, it's absolutely okay for you guys to get a non-refundable ticket. But just please, this is such a sub category, so I don't want you to use it as a regular practice. We talked about it and I covered it in previous points. It is important for you guys to have train tickets booked far in advance, but just in case you decide to do a last minute day trip somewhere, then you can of course get non-refundable tickets. And a lot of times, again, because it's literally the last minute, they will offer you last minute deals, promotions, etc. So it is not that uncommon, of course, for Trenitalia or Italo to do that. And of course, guys, I can sit here for another hour sharing with you all the tips and tricks when it comes to traveling Italy by train, but I want to also, of course, respect your time. And if you want to learn more on traveling Italy by train, if you want to really dive in even deeper, then I recommend for you to watch the most comprehensive guide I've ever created on traveling Italy by train. I will make sure to leave it for you in the description down below, no matter if you are watching this video on YouTube or if you're listening to it on Spotify or iTunes. I will make sure to leave it for you in the description. And I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in into today's episode. I enjoyed our conversation so much, and I truly hope that you found all this information we discussed today useful and beneficial for your future travels to Italy. And of course, if you want more of Stay Fabulous series, then please remember to smack that subscribe button. And if you're listening to this episode on iTunes or Spotify, please leave me a review with your biggest takeaway from today's episode. I absolutely love reading your comments. And of course, what can I say? I will talk to you all in my next episode. Until then, and always, stay fabulous.